All right, let's get into our first discussion now. The resurgence of Boko Haram attacks, the clamor for restructuring, separatist agitations, the anti-corruption war, herdsmen, farmers clashes, ASU strike. These are so many things. So many things
and
Nigerians are talking about.
Confirmation of key appointments included the economic recession, investigative panel reports, and perhaps a cabinet reshuffle, among others. Well, these are some of the issues, like we just said, juggling for President Buhari's attention.
But what exactly is the immediate task before President Buhari?
Well, to help us understand this is a lawyer and the convener, Country First Movement, Chris Nwokobia. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
My pleasure to be here. Good morning.
Right.
And also joining us from the United Kingdom via Skype is a political analyst, Olabode Oseni. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning for
All right.
me.
Yes, let me start with you, Olabode. What do you think should get the first attention of the president now that he is back?
Thank you very much. I think it's right to say to the president that he need to take stock. He need to ask what has been happening, and most of what has been happening are not magics. They are not something nobody knows about. The country is more divided than ever before. The country is facing so many problems from different areas. Let's take an example of security, crime, energy, employment, the institutions. Everything is falling apart. He must now say to himself and say, well, all I need to do, I can fix it. He needs to sit down now with people who wants to help him, to start multitasking, to make sure that all these problems, they are not small problems, but they are all fixable. They are all doable. He can fix them. All he needs to do, he's got the will, he's got the power, he's got the name on top of all this. He just needs to get the right people together to start fixing these problems.
All right, Professor Chris Nwokobia, let me come to you on this. 2 years on, and Nigerians are still looking for that thing, because they had lots of confidence in President Buhari. But the expectation has not been met, but they still have that thing. There's still that thing. You're waiting for somewhere. The patience with Nigerians, as the case may be, 2 years on and all of that. Do you think that one way or the other, Buhari has been able to express the goodwill, as in trying to repay the goodwill that Nigerians have had and bestowed on him?
Mike, increasingly, I think that if you ask me, I really would say that Nigerians are very, very patient with this administration, very benevolent with goodwill, because after 2 years, we still have more of propaganda than performance. But interestingly, just like you said, there appears a certain fate in Mr. President having a magic wand. And so people are still expecting him to pull it. But if you ask me, just like the man from the UK there noted, Nigeria is far more divided than any time in its history but the period of civil war. You know, and as you and I talk, like you noted in your opening, you have a jambalaya of conflicts and crises everywhere. You know, you're talking about the herdsmen, the marauding herdsmen, dishing and dealing banditry everywhere, turning out human barbecues across the country. You have Boko Haram doing its bidding and messing up our collective peace and decimating lives. You have the IPOB agitation, you have the South threatening to declare a republic, you have the Odua elements threatening to declare a republic, and you have a miscellany of conflict, you know. But I do sincerely think that what our president must do is to begin to attend those issues, because in the absence of peace, you cannot progress. In the absence of peace, you cannot, that development, that boisterous economy that so many people clamor for, that we all wish, will not be there. You know, what we actually need now first is some measure of peace, confidence, cohesion, brotherhood in the country. And I think that it is not so much of a gargantuan tax. If our dear president sits down, and sets out to work on it, we can achieve that. And I'll tell you quickly how he can do that. First, we have a government whose body language has changed from an appreciation of the goodwill and the Nigerian electorate gave to it. And we see the tendency for conflict, for anger, angst, for the spokespersons of the president are angry with everybody who criticizes government, and that affects almost everything that happens. Look at that speech that came from the president. It tells you the body language of those who are around him. And he's been away for so long. And to have come back, all they needed to tell him was to understand that Nigerians need a father now. We don't need a czar. We don't need an emperor. Nigerians need a father. They are hungry, they are angry, there's pain, and there's angst. And so what Nigerians need now is a father figure who will say to his fellow countrymen, thank you, I am back. We shall deal with these issues that has created hate, has created division, has created agitation for restructuring and the likes. And we will attend it, we will talk with you, and we will ensure that we have a country that we all believe in again, rather than threatening in the name of hate speech those who are agitating. Rather than threatening...
Let me try to quote him. Said, we will not allow some irresponsible elements start trouble, and when things get bad, they run away.
Yeah, the second leg of that, oh yeah, we know that we have people who have threatened banditry and brigandage, and we know that some of them have dual citizenship, and so when there's conflict and crisis, they will run away. Yes, we know. But at this point, the language of irresponsible elements is not needed. If you want to caution a child, give that child some air of sonship, some air of respect. You know, when America decides to negotiate, quote unquote, with terrorists, they don't do that because they're wonderful people. They're doing that because of national interest. And so what we are faced with is such that if you brand them, don't forget that they threaten your peace. Don't forget that they pose considerable threat to all of us. And so what you do is reach out. At this point in our history, that's what we need. Because we have an economy in recession, point one. Point two, we have ASU on strike. Point three, like I said initially, jambalaya of crisis. Everywhere there's crisis. Point four, the economy is doing well. Then we have a lethargic cabinet. Permit me use the word. A cabinet that is practically asleep. That's why Nance is saying that what Mr. President must do is first reshuffle his cabinet. We have a cabinet that's gone to bed.
Well, there was an indication of that before he even traveled. Let's bring Olabode to the discussion to get his own side too as well. Olabode, judging from the tone of the president's speech, the address to as well. Olabode, judging from the tone of the president's speech, the address to the nation when he got back, would you say, because some Nigerians are saying it already, that that speech, first off, was written for him because he was away. So are you worried that there are some people surrounding the president, according to many Nigerians, that are just politicians and are not even progressives, gunning after the interest of the common masses?
Thank you. Yeah, that has always been the problem. What I'm trying to say here to the president, he must come out of this problem of being surrounding himself with sycophants. Like the professor said, the people that surround the president as he speaks, they are not helping him. And also, we also need to say that the large majority of his constituency are the masses. The people making the loudest noise now are the masses. Why are they angry? Why are they making noise? Because if the president does not listen to them, you see, he cannot be fighting one war only the last 2 years, and we are still not getting results. He must multitask. He must look at other areas of problem facing the country. In the area, like I said, you need to create an enabling environment for a substantial part of the people. People are now saying they have no food, they have no light, they have no house, they have no education, they have nothing. And that is why the president, like I said, he's enjoying a tremendous amount of goodwill from the people, because the majority of Nigerians still believe in him, and that's why he should understand that the time is not on his side. He's not having the best health or whatever. Yes, he survived whatever the problem was. But he must remember this is his time, because whatever we are saying, the buck stop at his desk. He must realize that the majority of Nigerians are looking up to him, and he can do it. It is not difficult. All he needs to do is say, you know what, you have helped me 2 years, I did not get a result. I promise Nigerians that I'm going to do A, B, C, D of this, so and so. I have not got result. I need fresh hands. And that is why he probably need to reshuffle his cabinet. And like the professor in your studio said, these people have not been very helpful. And I'm sorry, this is not personal. It's nothing against anybody. Look, when you look at what we see from diaspora, you look at a situation like transportation, is still even worse than during the time of Zik and Awolowo. When you look at issue of energy, no country in the whole universe ever succeed, ever improved on their economy without energy. What is the problem? Why are we having problem to have energy in Nigeria? Decentralized, there's so many things the president can do. And I'm sure if he gives marching orders to people, some of the governors, some of the people who he believes, he can chop around, he can come to Europe, he can go anywhere. Because like I said, the loudest noise are being made by the ordinary people. And if he does not address their worries, their people, they are the one who are going to vote for either his party or himself again, and he must listen. You understand me? All these stories of the section, one section of the country, they're in the minority. Again, like I said, you cannot use all the tools, all the power he has, fighting only one corner. There's so many areas of concern that the president needs to attend to.
All right. Nwokobia, let me come to you on this. The president in his speech on Monday, a few days ago, said that he was briefed daily of what is going on. So the 103 or 104 days he was away, he got daily briefing of what's going on. So we assume that there is nothing he's not aware, from the herdsmen to the agitation. There is nothing he's not aware of, as the case may be. But now that he's back, the ministers, when they were brought up on board, we had lots of energy from the ministry. All the ministers were in high spirit.
They were eventually brought on board.
Exactly. They were all in high spirit, from the petroleum to power to housing and all of that, as the case may be. Solid minerals and all of that. Now we don't hear, they don't brief anyone anymore. Is that where the problem really is?
Mark, I don't think it is about not briefing the people. It's about allowing politics, political exigencies, and political correctness to overwhelm and, if you like, diminish their commitment to governance. That's what it is, you know, because when you x-ray what has been happening across the country, you find out that, just like you noted, we heard about rice. We were going to have rice in 6 months. We're going to have this. We're going to have this. We're going to have that. And all that has become, all that and the hopes attached to it has been frittered in the air. I think that what we must begin to do as a people first is to tell Mr. President that it is obvious that the Nigerian people understand the challenge that he faces. But the error was first his when he allowed political correctness to take the primacy over excellence in his appointing protocol. Because what he did was to get politicians on board, whereas Nigerians were asking for strategic appointments along the lines of getting experts, you know, into his cabinet who will attend these issues. One of the major conflicts was getting a lawyer who I think would have done profound, as the Attorney General and Minister of Justice perhaps, to man a very sensitive technical ministry like power. And you remember when the only pointer of beauty in the energy sector was when we had Baton Najiri, an expert in that field. And I don't know why we tend to politically undermine excellence. We tend to sacrifice the best on the altar of politics. Because if I were president, Mike, I would get back Baton Najiri. It shouldn't matter where his political inclinations or alienations.
He understands that industry.
He understands that sector. And you know what? He was the first to thinker with the independent power project in Nigeria. So he perhaps has fantastic relationship with people in that industry, in that sector. And what you count, like I said, and I always say, is country first. And then I want to say again that one of the greatest problems we have at the level of governance today is the fact that we have cheerleaders, court jesters, praise singers, and ensconcing surrounding Mr. President. And I say this advisedly. Our dear president must learn from the great Abraham Lincoln, who in his leadership efforts brought his worst critic, Stanton, and made him the most strategic appointee, his Secretary of War in times of American war, because he wanted a man who would tell him the truth at all times. What we have is a presidency that has worshippers, people who are unable to look Mr. President in the face with love, because if we truly care and love this president, we should be bold enough to say the truth to him. We're not enemies when we say things aren't working right. And I have said continuously, and I repeat it here, that those his spokesperson's brand, Willing Willers, have extensively peopled the group of patriots in this country. Because what is patriotism after all? Is commitment to your nation in asking that government does right. What we need in this country now is less of propaganda, less of hubris, less of hokum, less of hogwash, and more on performance and delivery of the dividends of democracy.
But as we've seen so far, it seems that many in the country do not even like objective criticism, so you cannot even blame
it's a tragedy of sort
of the government alone.
No, but we must learn to. The beauty of democracy is critical followership. The beauty of democracy is the opposition. Well, the beauty of democracy is exchange of thought and social engagement. And government must adopt a new approach to all this and understand that together with the opposition, with the critics, if you like, call them cynics or cynics, if you like, call their criticism a dint of sarcasm and cynicism, whatever you like. The truth is, my late father told me that even in the deafening noise of a madman, there is some sense.
Indeed. Okay.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yes. Olabode, what are the consequences now if President Muhammadu Buhari doesn't in any way act on all these problems staring the country in the face?
Of course, traditionally, when the government does not perform, when the government does not meet the expectations of the people, the people have the right to vote every other for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. They will have to decide. And I genuinely want to say this to everybody. And I've said it many times. I host a program on television here, and I say this all the time. The biggest problem facing us in Nigeria is just because we've chosen not to respect. We've chosen not to respect the constitutional authority, rule of law, because you cannot imagine trillions of people's money voted to do a project, and they are abandoned along the line. And why? It's because of the corruption. And because of the corruption, so many things is now lacking. The president must understand that this is a presidential system. Like your guest said, you know, he can go anywhere. He can go anywhere to go and look for people who will do the job. And as it is, the way things are going, an average person will say, what did I get from this government? And I also made a quick example of what is supposed to be. When you are building a house, when you are rebuilding a house, there are so many workers involved in building a house. We have a situation where the most important part of building a house, the worker, is the one that is at the bottom that will carry the cement, that will carry all. You cannot neglect them. You cannot ignore them. You cannot exclude ordinary people in Shagamu, somewhere in Kafansha, or somewhere in Ilorin. You cannot ignore them. These are the people, and that's why the masses are the one making the largest, the loudest noise. They must be attended to. Their problem must be addressed. You cannot continue saying that we don't have light, we don't have good roads, we have no schools, we have no food. You cannot continue selecting some people. You see, the noise and the noises of very few, less than 1% of Nigerians, you can ignore them. You cannot ignore the problems, the issues facing the large majority of the people. So the way it is, if this party or this government does not perform, they're very likely to be voted out. That is nothing against anybody, but that is the truth. And he needs to stop surrounding himself with people who are just not telling him the truth. He can see himself. I'm sure maybe 1 hour in a day he watches television and he hears the news. He cannot be relying on the people coming to him and say, Baba, everything is super, everything is super out there. That is not correct. He must be his own man. He must take action. Action is necessary. He doesn't do it, it's going to be a peril, not only for him, he's got a name to protect. All these are little things the president can do. And he has the goodwill, he has the power, nobody can stop him.
All right.
That is the beauty of presidential system.
Okay. Thank you very much, Olabode Oseni. I just hope that it's not late yet for the government of the day to do something, because 2018 is going to be a campaign year, one way or the other, before 2019, the elections.
Quite instructive. Very
That's
simple,
right.
Really. Many people build
Thank you
house,
very much for having me.
You should not ignore that person carrying cement.
Everybody is important. Thank you very much. Professor Chris Mokobia, Director General, Change Ambassadors of Nigeria. Thanks for coming.
Wants to say something?
All
right, less than a minute.
Yeah. For those who are around Mr. President to have ignored a monumental sector of our nation, which is education, and the ASU strike in the speech was a major kill. I think that service to country and service to the presidency must take serious account of what happens to our educational sector.
All right.
Our president must do something about those around him, about his team, and rededicate himself, like he said, to the service of nation.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Chris Mokobia. Thanks for coming.
Profound pleasure.
Right.
Well, today makes it the 10th day the Academic Staff Union downed tools in the tertiary institutions across the country.
Now, the union says its members will meet it this week to discuss the government's offer and take a position. Correspondent Sharon Nijason, who has been keeping a tab on the story, now reports.